Have you ever tried to teach or train someone to do something, to obtain new skill, perhaps your colleagues or your kids? How successful you are? Was it difficult? Most probably yes. And now imagine that you have to teach something really challenging, someone who really doesn't speak your language, you are not speaking his or her, in this case his, and he's a complete stranger, naturally opposing any strangers, any new things, so they have different values, and this was the situation I found myself with my fellow soldiers from Slovak Armed Forces. I was deployed with my team for almost 1 year, training Afghan soldiers in southern Afghanistan. To say true, it was really interesting experience. Our task was to train them, not actually to fight, as Rastislav already said. They are natural-born soldiers, they are natural-born fighters. What we did over there, we trained them how to plan and how to sustain their operations to be ready to fight tomorrow. Well, this situation, there are no handbooks for that. And you will quickly find that there are a lot of things which are really quickly lost in translation. And here, if you want to succeed, you have to apply all your adaptability, all your empathy, resourcefulness, and even intuition. And it turns out that we Slovaks are good at this. It's somewhere in our hearts. Most probably, it's because of our history. In past 100 years, we were part of 5 different states and regimes. And to say true, you already heard that we are a small country. Our nation is just 5 million, so we are like small plants somewhere in a jungle of tall trees, so we are bending, twisting, trying to find even the smallest spot of light just to survive. It's our survival technique. So, I deployed to southern Afghanistan, to province of Uruzgan, which was that time called heartland of Taliban. And I spent there 2 deployments with the same combat service support battalion. Most probably you really don't know what it is, called combat service support. Combat service support soldiers are unsung heroes. Everyone is telling stories about fighters, but the guys who are bringing supplies, water, food, ammunition, these are the heroes. They are maintaining weapons or any other technique what you are using. They are maintaining communication, and most probably the most important thing is the fact that they are treating wounded bodies, their comrades, their friends, and making them live for another day. So even the best fighting unit is just as best as their supportist. This all was responsibility of my small team, which was composed of Slovaks, Australian soldiers, American soldiers, and during first deployment, even Dutch soldiers. Shortly after we took over, there was a first story which will most probably vividly describe you some of our qualities. Shortly after we took over from our preceding team, we found out that ammunition supply point in the base, it is simply a place full of any type of explosive devices you can imagine for whole Afghan army brigade, which was almost 100 tons of explosives, was in terrible shape. It was in the middle of coalition base. Coalition soldiers were living beside it, and it was just a pile of containers with crates of ammunition everywhere without any protection. Dangerous, isn't it? Yes, it was. Once I reported that to my superiors, coalition commanders, they immediately decided to take action. And they called some preliminary working groups to identify problem, then another working group simply to find a way how to approach the problem, and it seemed that, hey, it will take a lot of time. And here comes the Slovak way of doing business. Direct approach and willing to take responsibility. So I took responsibility. I approached my counterpart on the Afghan side who was responsible for that ammunition depot. And very informally discussed with him the situation. Hey, Colonel, this is really not good. And it is dangerous even for your soldiers, not for mine. If we are lucky, one morning we will wake up just with a hole in the middle of the base. If we are not, we'll see. So how to do it? How to tell him that his ammunition depot is ticking time bomb, and how to do it without him losing his face in front of his superiors? Well, what we did, we offered them help, but still let them maintain the situation. It was their ammunition supply point. It was not only their problem, it was also our problem. But however, the added value was if they tidy up that ammunition depot with our help, they will maintain the procedure, and for the future may happen that they will stay with all this. At the end, we succeeded. We succeeded somewhere where soldiers from big countries lost because they were working according to their handbooks. Sometimes it's really hard to mentor and train someone else because sometimes you have to accept good enough solution, not handbook solution, because you have really not enough time. To understand thinking of Afghans, you have to accept these solutions, and also you have to accept their way of life, accept their tradition, respect their traditions. For example, accept offered meal, grow your facial hairs because it makes you older in their eyes. Even sometimes there were issues which were big deals for them, for us nothing, vice versa. If you are working with them, you have to be ready not to be frustrated that sometimes you will do 2 steps ahead, then 1 step back. The other day, there are just 1 step ahead and 2 back, so you have to maintain the tempo and just trying to persuade, and the first solution is better. And these characteristics were really important even during the process of selecting my team members, when I really tell you that I refused some best soldiers because I found them too strict. And really I wanted someone who is flexible and who will be accepting that different culture. Just to move to the second story, which will describe another of our qualities, which is resourcefulness and also craftsmanship. We were living in scarcity here for a couple of decades, let's say, and we adapted certain do-it-yourself culture. There is another story that part of my team was a howitzer maintainers group, which was over there in Afghanistan to train Afghan soldiers to repair their artillery equipment, which was primarily Soviet origin, so we were chosen obviously for that. The biggest problem was the fact that there was not enough spare parts, there was lack of understanding for proper procedures, and so on and so on. Fortunately, I had a group of soldiers who were able to create new spare parts virtually from scrap metal. Whatever we found around the base, we used, and actually we repaired almost everything what we put our hands on. As that time commander of Regional Command South, General Abrams, said, Slovaks again saved the day once we sent our maintainers to the other task forces across the southern Afghanistan, which was primarily my responsibility, so no one told me to do that. Prior one of the major artillery exercise where Afghan fire support units were to be certified to be independent enough to support their forces. We repaired all that equipment over there, just make that exercise to happen. All this with some other small jobs done, we were considered as an extraordinary job, and all high-ranking officers around were really interested to visit Slovaks doing miracles, as they called us. So to sum it up, make this long story short, if you want to teach, train, mentor, call it whatever you want, to someone, you have to be flexible. Be ready not to be frustrated if your mentee is doing the job his own way, provided the fact that the result is what you expect. We are really naturally flexible. We are using all the boundaries set by rules. And this also provides us that our people act responsibly in this case. What I learned was the fact that with team working in this specific environment, if you have freedom of decision making and you let that freedom to your subordinates will act responsibly. In situation like this with the right personnel, freedom of decision is the key, and I would say this is not a theory. This was proven in one of the most hostile environments in the world. And since that time, I found out that this is working even in your civilian life. Thank you.